It is a sincere pleasure to welcome the celebrated international sensation Yuval Noah Harari to this podium. He is the author of the critically acclaimed New York Times bestselling book entitled Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind. Fans of his earlier work, and there are many, have been waiting anxiously for the sequel. Their patience has been rewarded. Homo Deus, A Brief History of Tomorrow, is the title of his newest work, and it is just as riveting as it is provocative.
What I really want to discuss is the next big revolution in history. And of course, there have been many different revolutions in the last thousands of years. We had revolutions in technology, in economics, in society, in politics, but one thing remained constant for thousands, even tens of thousands of years, and this is humanity itself. Humanity did not change, really, since the Stone Age. We are still the same people that we were in the Roman Empire, or in biblical times, or in the Stone Age. We still have the same bodies, the same brains, the same minds as the people who painted the cave art at Lascaux and Altamira. The next revolution will change that. The really big revolution of the 21st century will not be in our tools, in our vehicles, in our society, in our economy. The really big revolution will be in ourselves, in humanity. The main products of the 21st century economy will be bodies and brains and minds. We are now learning how to hack not just computers, but how to hack organisms, and in particular, how to hack humans. We are learning how to engineer them and how to manufacture them. So it is very likely that within a century or two, Homo sapiens, as we've known it for thousands of years, will disappear. Not because, like in some Hollywood science fiction movie, the robots will come and kill us, but rather because we will use technology to upgrade ourselves, or at least some of us, into something different, something which is far more different from us than we are different from Neanderthals. Medicine is shifting, or will shift, from healing the sick to upgrading the healthy. And you can say that the really big project of humankind will be to start manipulating or gaining control of the world inside us. For thousands of years, humanity has been gaining control of the world outside us, gaining control of the animals, the forest, the rivers, but with very little control of the world inside us. We knew how to stop a river from flowing. We did not know how to stop a body from aging. We knew how to kill mosquitoes if they buzzed in our ears and interrupted our sleep. We did not know how to stop buzzing thoughts in our own minds that interrupt our sleep. When we go, you go to sleep, you want to fall asleep, and suddenly a thought comes up, what to do? You don't know. It's not a mosquito that you can kill. This will change in the 21st century. We will try to gain the same control that we had over the world outside. We'll try to gain the same control over the world inside us. And if this really succeeds, it will be not just the greatest revolution in history, it will actually be the greatest revolution in biology since the very beginning of life. Life first appeared, as far as we know, on planet Earth around 4 billion years ago. And since its appearance, nothing much changed in the fundamental laws of life. Yes, you had all the dinosaurs and all the mammals and all these things, but the basic rules of the game of life did not change at all for 4 billion years. For 4 billion years, you had natural selection. Everything, dinosaurs, amoeba, coconuts, humans, evolved by natural selection. And for 4 billion years, all of life was confined to the organic realm. Again, doesn't matter if you're a Tyrannosaurus rex or a tomato, you were made of organic compounds. In the coming century, humankind may have the ability to, first of all, replace natural selection with intelligent design as the fundamental principle of the evolution of life, not the intelligent design of some god above the clouds, but our intelligent design will be the main driving force of the evolution of life. And secondly, we may gain the ability to create the first inorganic life forms after 4 billion years of organic evolution. And if this succeeds, then this is really the greatest revolution since the very beginning of life. Of course, there are many dangers involved in this. One danger is that we'll do to the world inside us what we have done to the world outside us, which is not very nice things. Yes, over thousands of years, humans have gained control of the world outside, of the animals, of the forests, of the rivers, but they didn't really understand the complexity of the ecological system, and they weren't very responsible in how us, behaved, which is why now the ecological system is on the brink of collapse. We used our control to completely destabilize the ecological system, to completely unbalance it, largely due to ignorance. And we are very ignorant of the world inside us also. We know very little about the complexity, not just of the body and brain, but above all, about the complexity of the human mind. We don't really understand how it functions and what keeps it in balance. And the danger is that we will start manipulating the world inside us in such a way that will completely unbalance our internal ecological system. And we may face a kind of internal ecological disaster, similar to the external ecological disaster that we face today. Another danger is on the social level. We may end up, due to these new technologies, with the most unequal society in human history. Because for the first time in history, it will be possible to translate economic inequality into biological inequality. For thousands of years, there were differences between rich and poor, nobility and commoners, but they were just economic and legal and political. The kings may have imagined that they are superior to everybody else. They are more capable, they are more creative, they are more courageous, whatever. And this is why there are kings and nobles. But this wasn't true. There was no real difference in ability between the king and the peasant. In the 21st century, this may change. Using the new technologies, it will be possible basically to split humankind into biological castes. And then once you open such a gap, it becomes almost impossible to close it. Another danger, related danger, is that even without all these new bioengineering and things like that, we will see an extremely unequal society as elites and states lose their interest, lose their incentive to invest in the health and education and welfare of the masses. The 19th and 20th century were the age of the masses. The masses were the central force in politics and in society, and almost all advanced countries, regardless of political regime, invested heavily in the health and education and welfare of the masses. Even dictatorships like Nazi Germany or like the Soviet Union built massive systems of education and welfare and health for the masses, hospitals and schools and paying teachers and nurses and vaccinations and sewage systems and all that. Why did they do it? Not because Stalin and Hitler are very nice people, but because they knew that they needed the masses. Hitler and the Nazis knew perfectly well that if they wanted Germany to be a strong nation with a strong army and a strong economy, they needed millions of poor Germans to serve as soldiers in the army and as workers in the factories and offices, which is why they had a very good incentive to invest in their education and health. But we may be leaving the age of the masses. We may be entering a new era in which the masses are just not useful for anything. They'll be transformed from the working class into the useless class. In the military, it has already happened. It's very often in history that armies march a few decades ahead of the civilian economy. And if you look at armies today, you see that the transition has already happened. In the 20th century, the best armies in the world relied on recruiting millions of common people to serve as common soldiers in the army. But today, the best armies in the world rely on fewer and fewer humans, and these humans are not your ordinary common soldiers. They tend to be highly professional soldiers, all the elite special forces and super warriors. And the armies rely increasingly on sophisticated and autonomous technologies like drones and cyber warfare and things like that. So in the military field, most humans already in 2017 are useless. There is nothing to do with them. They are not needed to build a strong army. The same thing may happen in the civilian economy. We hear more and more talk about the danger of artificial intelligence and machine learning pushing millions, hundreds of millions, maybe even billions of people out of the job market. Self-driving cars that 10 years ago sounded like complete science fiction, today the only argument is whether it will take 5 years or 10 years or 15 years until we'll see more and more self-driving vehicles on the road. And they will push all the taxi drivers and truck drivers and bus drivers out of the job market. You won't need these jobs. Same things may happen in other fields like in medicine. Of course, new jobs might appear. People say, okay, you don't need truck drivers, but there'll be many new jobs, let's say in software engineering, who will program all these new AI programs. And there'll be lots of jobs designing virtual worlds and things like that. One problem, this is a possible scenario. One problem with this scenario is that as AI becomes better and better, we have really no guarantee that even programming software is something that humans will do better than computers. The problem is not in having new jobs in 2050. The problem is having new jobs that humans do better. Just having new jobs that computers do better won't help in terms of the job market. Another problem is that people will have to reinvent themselves again and again and again in order to stay relevant, in order to stay in the job market. And this may not be easy. If you think about an unemployed taxi driver or an unemployed cashier from Walmart who at age 50 loses his or her job to a new machine, new artificial intelligence. So at age 50, to reinvent yourself as a software engineer, this is going to be very, very difficult. The worst problem, of course, is not in the developed countries, but in the developing countries. The really big question is what will happen to the Nigerians, to the Bangladeshi, to the Brazilians. If millions of textile workers in Bangladesh lose their jobs because of automation, what will they do? I mean, we are not teaching the children of Bangladesh today to be software engineers. So we may be facing in the 21st century a completely new kind of inequality, which we have never seen before in human history. On the one hand, the emergence of a new upgraded elite of superhumans enhanced by bioengineering and brain-computer interfaces and things like that. And on the other hand, a new massive useless class, a class that has no military or economic usefulness, and therefore also no political power. Finally, there is the question, the political question of authority. What we may see in the 21st century, alongside the processes I just discovered, is a fundamental shift in authority from humans to algorithms. There have been a few previous shifts in authority in history. Hundreds of years ago, say in the European Middle Ages, authority came down from the clouds, from God. You wanted to know who should rule the country or what to do, whether in terms of national policy or in terms of your personal life. Authority to answer these questions came from God. So you ask God, and if you had no direct connection to God, you read the Bible, or you asked a priest or a rabbi that knew what God wanted, and this was the source of authority. Then in the last 2-3 centuries, rose a new worldview, a new ideology called humanism. And humanism said, no, the source of authority is not above the clouds. The source of authority is inside you. Human feelings and human free choices, this is the ultimate source of authority. You want to know who should rule the country, you don't read the Bible, you don't ask the Pope, you don't ask the chief rabbi, you go to every person, every human being, and ask, what do you feel? What do you think? And based on that, we know who should rule the country. Similarly, in the economy, what's the highest authority in the economy? It's the customer. The customer is always right. You want to know whether a car is good or not, who do you ask? You ask the customer. If the customer like it, if the customers buy it, it means this is a good car. There is no higher authority than the customer in a modern humanistic economy. It's the same thing in ethics. What's good and what's bad? So in the Middle Ages, it is what God says. It's what the Bible says. For example, if you think about homosexuality, why was it considered a terrible sin? Because God said so, because the Bible said so. And these were the highest authority in the ethical field. Then came humanism and said, no, the highest authority is human feelings, whether it makes humans feel good or bad. If two men are in love and they don't harm anybody else, both of them feel very good about the relationship, they don't harm anybody, what could possibly be wrong with it? We don't care what's written in the Bible or what the Pope says. We care only about human feelings. So this was the ethical revolution of humanism, placing human feelings at the top of the ethical pyramid. And this is also why humanist education, the main ambition of humanist education was very different from education, say, in the Middle Ages. In the Middle Ages, the main aim of education was to teach people what God wants, or what the Bible says, or what the great wise people of the past have written. The main aim of a humanist education is to teach people to think for themselves. You go to a humanist educational establishment, whether it's kindergarten or university, and you ask the teacher, the professor, what do you try to teach the kids, the students? So the professor would say, oh, I try to teach history or economics or physics, but above all, I try to teach them to think for themselves. Because this is the highest authority. What do you think? What do you feel? So this is humanism, the big revolution in authority of the last 2 or 3 centuries. And now we are on the verge of a new revolution. Authority is shifting back to the clouds. To the Microsoft cloud, to the Google cloud, to the Amazon cloud, data. And data processing is the new source of authority. Don't listen to the Bible, and don't listen to your feelings. Listen to Amazon, listen to Google. They know how you feel. They know you better than you know yourself, and they can make better decisions on your behalf than you can. The central idea of this new worldview, which you can call dataism because it invests authority in data, the central tenet is that given enough data, especially biometric data about a person, and given enough computing power, Google or Facebook can create an algorithm that knows you better than you know yourself. Now, how does it work in practice? Let's give an example so it doesn't stay too abstract. Let's say you want to buy a book. I'm in the book business, so it's very close to my heart. How do you choose which books to buy? So, which books to read? So in the Middle Ages, you go to the priest, you go to the rabbi, and they tell you, read the Bible. It's the best book in the world. All the answers are there. You don't need anything else. And then comes humanism and says, yeah, the Bible, there are some nice chapters there, but there are many other good books in the world. Don't let anybody tell you what books to buy. You just go, and the customer is always right and all that. You just go to a bookstore, you wander between the aisles, you take this book, you take that book, you flip, you look inside, you have some gut instinct that, this is an interesting book, take it and read it. You follow your own instinct and feelings. Now you go online to the Amazon virtual bookshop, and the moment you enter, an algorithm pops up. I know you. I've been following you and following millions of people like you, and based on everything I know about your previous likes and dislikes, I recommend that you read this book. You'll find it very interesting. But this is really just the first baby step. The next step, if there are people here who read books on Kindle, then you probably know, you should know, that as you read the book is reading you. For the first time in history, books are reading people rather than vice versa. As you read a book on Kindle, Kindle is following you, and Kindle, which means Amazon, knows which pages you read slow, which pages you read fast, and on which page you stop reading the book. And based on that, Amazon have quite a good idea of what you like or dislike. But it is still very primitive. The next stage, which is technically feasible today, is to connect Kindle to face recognition software, which already exists. And then Kindle knows when you laugh, when you cry, when you're bored, when you're angry. The final step, which probably will be possible in 5-10 years, is to connect Kindle to biometric sensors on or inside your body, which constantly monitor your blood pressure, your heart rate, your sugar level, your brain activity. And then Kindle, which means Amazon, knows the exact emotional impact of every sentence you read in the book. You read a sentence, what happened to your blood pressure? This is the kind of information that Amazon could have. And by the time you finish the book, let's say you read Tolstoy's War and Peace. By the time you finish the book, you forgot most of it. But Amazon will never forget anything. By the time you finish War and Peace, Amazon knows exactly who you are, what is your personality type, and how to press your emotional buttons. And based on such information, it can not only recommend books to you, it can do far more spectacular and frightening things, like recommend to you what to study, or whom to date, or whom to vote for on election. In order for authority to shift from you to the Amazon algorithm will not have to be perfect. It will just have to be better than the average human, which is not so very difficult because people make terrible mistakes in the most important decisions of their lives. Like you make a decision what to study or whom to marry or whatever, and after 10 years, oh no, this was such a stupid decision. So Amazon will just have to be better than that in order for people to trust it more and more and for authority to shift from the human feelings and choices to these external algorithms that not only understand how we feel, but even understand why we feel the way that we feel. It's very important to emphasize that nothing is really deterministic about all that. What I've outlined in this talk are not forecasts. Nobody really knows what the future would be like. There are more possibilities that we need to take into account, and we can still do something about these possibilities. Technology is never deterministic. It gives us options. If you, again, look back to the 20th century, so the technologies of the 20th century, the trains and electricity and radio and television and all that, you could use these technologies to create a communist dictatorship or a fascist regime or a liberal democracy. The trains did not tell you what to do with them. Electricity did not come with a political manual of what to do with it. You have here a very famous picture taken from outer space of East Asia at night. What you see at the bottom right corner is South Korea. What you see at the upper left corner is China. And in the middle, it's not the sea, it's North Korea. This black hole there, it's North Korea. Now, why is North Korea dark while South Korea is so full of light? Not because the North Koreans have not encountered electricity before, they've heard of it, they have some use for it, but they chose to do with electricity very different things than what the South Koreans chose to do with it. So the same people, same geography, same climate, same history, same technology, but different choices lead to such a big difference you can actually see from outer space. And it will be the same with the 21st century. Bioengineering and artificial intelligence are definitely going to change our world, but we still have some options. And if you don't like some of the future possibilities that I've outlined in this talk, you can still do something about it. Thank you.
For more on this program and other Carnegie Ethics Studio productions, visit carnegiecouncil.org. There you can find video highlights, transcripts, audio recordings, and other multimedia resources on global ethics. This program is made possible by the Carnegie Ethics Studio and viewers like you.